in, bro. How about you?
Doing okay. Doing okay.
All right, all right, all right, all right, all right. We'll get that from a okay to a freaking awesome by the end of this thing. Drew, I was thinking about you today, bro. I was looking at pictures from Croatia, and even looking at pictures of you from Croatia, I'm like, he doesn't look like that on Zooms. Like you look so much slimmer just on Zoom. And like every time I see you, which we're gonna be seeing each other in about a week here, it's just like you shapeshift. So I'm excited to see what you look like. Just 2 months difference, man.
Yeah, I think it's probably 30 pounds or so since Croatia. So
That's
it's my
crazy.
25 pounds there.
That's crazy. Yeah. Jeff, what's up, man? How you doing, my friend?
Much doing well.
Heck yeah, man. You're looking good too, Jeff. Everybody's just shape shifting every call, just a little bit more. Just the heads are getting slimmer, jawlines are getting more chiseled, shirts are fitting a bit more broad on the shoulders and feel it out more on the chest. So I love it, man. Okay. All right, guys, let's get into it. I gave everybody a few minutes already to hop in. Who's going to hop in? I got 2 PTI myths for you guys to dive into. Obviously, like you guys know with PTI, I haven't watched Joey's recordings recently. I know he's more of a tinfoil hat type guy. But I'm hopefully, looking to drop some valuable education while we dive into these myths, and I'll just let Joey do his crazy stuff. I love that. That's why we love him. But yeah, we'll dive into some valuable stuff here with some of the myths that I've seen just come up like at certain points in people's training careers. The first one is going to be something that comes up when people are a little bit further. You've been consistent for like 3 months, 6 months, 9+ months type of thing. So really fitting for some of y'all. The other one is something that comes up that maybe we haven't discussed yet, but definitely comes up in the beginning. So before I dive into the 2 myths that I want to dissect, I wanted to open the floor to you guys to see if you guys had any pressing questions that we could dive into initially, whether that be around training, nutrition, recovery, things you've seen online over the past week, anything that comes to y'all's mind so we can kick this thing off.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on the interference effect.
Interference.
Yeah. Are you familiar with that?
No, please bring me up to speed.
Yeah. So it's basically this idea that you can't do like intense cardio training and intense like strength training and like make progress in both. I have my own thoughts on it, but I'd love to, hear like, because you're someone who does BJJ and now you're training for triathlon and you love lifting too, like me. And so I'd love to hear, what your thoughts are. Like, how do you balance the two?
Yeah, no, that's great. I've never heard it labeled as the interference effect. But like I've heard it labeled in a few different ways. The way that I've really, really heard it labeled in like my kind of the people I've been mentored under, the people I've learned from, is just that like trying to focus on 2 things at once makes you suck at both. That's the way I've heard it labeled, right? Like if you're trying to be a bodybuilder, Mr. Olympia, pure hypertrophy, and you're running, the running is literally a training that is causing the opposite physical adaptation in your muscles to muscles growing bigger and stronger. If you're trying to be the strongest human on earth, but you're running, like strength output in, a 1 second lift is the opposite of muscle endurance over a 1 hour run. Right. And so there's truth to that. And there's a lot of truth to that. But I want to make sure you guys all understand that when it comes to this interference effect, or, does running make you worse at growing lean muscle mass, or does building lean muscle mass make you worse at cardio? That it's only more true as you get to the extreme ends of the spectrum, right? So if any of you guys told me that your goal was to be a 285-pound bodybuilder and you want to go on a stage and have just the biggest muscles humanly possible, and every millimeter of muscle size mattered, I would never recommend doing something like cardio or doing something like jujitsu. If you had an extreme goal of one specific bodily adaptation, right? By the same token, if you guys told me you wanted to be the champion, top 10 at the Boston Marathon this year, or whatever it was, if you wanted to be an elite endurance athlete, there is no chance I'd be having you guys doing 3 sets of heavy deadlifts, right? There's no chance that that would happen. They're totally different muscular adaptations. And even if you're consuming the same nutritionally, it's the stimulus, it's the external stimulus that creates the adaptation. Your body responds to the inputs of training that you give it, right? And so if you're giving it an input of training to make it stronger, it's not going to respond by having more endurance. It's not. If you give it the input of training to make it have more endurance, it's not going to respond by getting stronger. It's not, right? If you give it the input of training to have more endurance, there's some aspects of it responding by having a little bit bigger muscles, but that's not really how it's going to respond. The input determines the output. And so the more extreme an input becomes, the less you can expect the opposite outputs, right? The more specifically you train for cardio, the less muscle you can expect to gain. The more specifically you train for strength, the less cardio you can expect to have, less muscular endurance you can expect to have, right? Anyway, all that being said, nobody here in Default Kings has the goal of being a 300 plus pound bodybuilder. Nobody does. Nobody here in Default Kings, well, maybe, we don't know yet. Drew's like, well, actually, brother, after the Ironman, I'm stepping on stage. Heck yeah. I know Nathan's actually doing a bodybuilding show soon. So that he'll be the second ever Default Kings bodybuilder in history. But anyway, that's an example, right? Like genuinely for Nathan reaching that bodybuilding goal, doing extremely intense cardio is going to hurt that goal. It's going to hurt that goal. So that's something that he has to manage. That's something that he has to say, okay, maybe I'm not running 10Ks every weekend because the extra millimeter on my quads for my bodybuilding matters, right? But generally speaking, other than maybe Drew, okay, but generally speaking, no one in Default Kings has an extreme goal for one specific muscular adaptation. Nobody joins saying, I want to be a marathon runner specifically. Nobody says, I want to be a bodybuilder specifically, powerlifter specifically. Everybody generally wants to build more muscle, build more strength, be more functional, have more endurance overall, right? We want that holistic progression of all bodily adaptations. We want the benefits of everything, right? We want to be able to look good, feel good, be capable of protecting ourselves and our loved ones, and be capable of experiencing a high quality of life because our bodies are physically able. And so what that means is it's okay for us to train in these different forms. And like, yes, acknowledging on paper, every time that I go on a 5 or 10K run, I am taking a little bit away of the quad size I could be gaining from the squats that I did that week, right? Every time I'm adding muscle mass to the freaking inside of my leg, I'm literally creating friction between me being able to run more swiftly and more efficiently. That's happening, right? And I'm not going to be the best runner that I could possibly be while I'm doing heavy deadlifts. I'm not going to be the best deadlifter I could possibly be while I'm doing long runs. I'm definitely not going to be the healthiest bench presser I could possibly be while getting my shoulders constantly cranked on in jiu-jitsu, right? Getting your shoulders ripped off your body is not part of any bench program, and it should never be. But it's okay. It is okay. Doing a little bit of all allows me to reach the goal of just being better looking, stronger, more functional, more capable, healthy, and capable of lots of different things. So I have a high quality of life, right? Which is the main goal, right? So anytime, like if I post a picture of myself on the internet, which it's so funny because I not like take a picture of myself and like, look at my abs type person. But, sometimes you got to make those sacrifices to prove your point or inspire other people who want something. But like, if somebody comments on my physique and is like, dude, like, why are your biceps not massive? I'm like, I'm not a bodybuilder. I don't care. Or if they're like, oh, it took you that long, took you an hour to run a 10K. I'm like, yep, not a marathon. Like that's not what I'm here for. But anyway, the interference effect is absolutely true on paper, right? Training yields a specific adaptation. But it's okay. It's okay to have interference. It's okay, depending on your goals. Just keep in mind, guys, that like as your goals may or may not shift as you progress over the years, right? You guys are in this for life. There might be a day where you're like, I do want to run a marathon. If you asked me 2 months ago, I'd be like, no, not running a half Ironman. That's not happening until I'm 40, right? If you remember, Drew, I made that promise. That's also kind of yeah. So this is new for me, but like I have to accept the interference effect. I had to accept me training for this Ironman is going to take away from my explosiveness. Right? It's going to take away from my recovery in BJJ, and that's fine because I want those multiple goals, right? So yeah, interference effect is definitely true on paper, but doesn't mean you have to completely avoid it in practice, right? And if you guys notice this, as you start doing more cardio, more running for some of the challenges we've been doing, a little bit more weakness, maybe less explosiveness in the gym.
Yeah, a little bit. I kind of started that, a mile a day, which kind of ended up going to like 1.5 to like 2 miles a day, to then doing like 5 and 10Ks randomly, with everyone doing Sunday miles and all that stuff. And definitely like I saw, and it's probably a mixture of both, but I saw my like weight progression in the gym also kind of slow down. But that's also like you gain more at the beginning and then that slows down naturally anyway. So it's probably a combination of both. But yeah, listening to like the like the mind pump guys, like they're real big on the whole like interference, and they're like just go for walks and you don't need to do cardio and like cut that out unless you really have that goal of cardio. So
yeah, that's true. Love the mind pump guys, and they talk about that a lot, right? Like, and again, like if somebody only comes to me and they're like, Gabe, I want a lean, muscular, healthy body. Like our default cardio is walking.
Right.
That's what it is. And like, again, if you ask us on paper, even if you ask me for your health, like what's healthier, and we're just going to transition into the first PTI that I wanted to cover, which was, should you train for health only? Should you train for health only? It's an interesting question, right? Because we do all train for health, but should you train for health only health, right? And right out of the gate, the answer is to the question, should you train for health only? The answer is no. Okay. The answer is no. I don't believe you should only train for health. Okay. Because if we're only training for health and lack of illness and injury was the primary goal that can never be infringed upon, then there would be a lot of things that we do that we wouldn't do. Think about if if you were to ask like a parent, right? Like Jeff, like you're a parent, like you get this, right? Liam and Vinny, I know you guys don't have kids, Drew, I know you don't have kids, but it's like, what's your function as a parent? Is your function just to keep your kids safe at all costs? Jeff?
No, sometimes the opposite. Yeah.
There you go. Sometimes the opposite.
Sometimes they push them a little. Yeah.
Push them, let them scrape their knees, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. When I was 18 through 19, I worked at this preschool, and I've told some of you guys about this, but I got to see just like little kids, how they interact. And there were so many moments where, you would see a little kid doing something, you tell them, of course, you warn them, hey, like you're gonna scrape your knees if you keep running with your shoes untied, just so you know, right? And of course they understand, okay, like whatever, Mr. Gabe. They start running again. And it's not like you run up to them and like hold them and you're like, no, you're not running. You're like, okay, like you're gonna find out. Sure enough, they're sprinting, they scrape their knees, and you're like, there you go. But like again, like only keeping them safe wouldn't have even allowed them to just learn that lesson, right? If anything, it's like the kids that have the parents that are too hovering, right? That are fragile, they're weak, right? They can't handle social interaction, social altercation. They can't handle pain and stress, right? All the snowflake 23-year-olds that Joey and I like piss off so often in our generation, just because they're just sheltered, like bubbles around them, right? No human interaction, no struggle. Anyway, it's the same thing with your training. Like, yes, health is one of the most primary goals, right? It probably actually is the primary goal: health, quality of life, being there, being able. But it's not the only goal. Okay, it's not the only goal. And sometimes there are sacrifices that you might take to your health. When I say health, guys, I don't mean just like being alive and not being disease-free. I mean just perfect body, always no pain. There's sacrifices you might make for other benefits. So an example could be something like BJJ, right? That we're all going to be doing this weekend. BJJ can get you healthier, but it's objectively not the healthiest thing you could do. Okay, right now, as I'm standing here, I'm looking down at my toes. My toes are swollen, okay, and they hurt really bad. My shoulders my right one is achy in this weird way that I can't describe. I have to do some weird rehab for. I've tweaked my back a million times. Joey, when we were at the beach last weekend, we were throwing a baseball, and he couldn't throw the baseball with his left arm because he freaking snapped his elbow the other week and had this UCL injury. Objectively, like all of these things, having your toes jammed, elbows snapped, shoulders hurting from time to time, are not objectively healthy on paper, right? Like we wouldn't recommend those things. And but there's other benefits that we are willing to sacrifice our health for the other benefits of that training, of the mental benefits, the stress tolerance, just the fact that it builds our bond as men together. Also the fact that it teaches us self-defense. It makes us more capable of another benefit, right? Protecting ourselves, protecting our loved ones. Another example of this is a few weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago, I twisted my ankle really bad at jiu-jitsu. And like it was gnarly. I did end up taking a week off, not because I wanted to, because I literally like there was pain as I was walking for about a week. Swollen ankle. And if you were to ask me what's the best thing you can do for your health for the ankle, the best thing would be taking dedicated time months away from BJJ to rehab that ankle, right? Don't put it in a risky environment whatsoever. Don't overstress it. Don't push the pace. And I actually got this from a physical therapist last year because I twisted my ankle pretty bad. And I told him about my ankle history. And he was like, dude, the reason you keep twisting your ankle, Gabe, is because every time you twist your ankle from, high school sports to now, you don't actually rehab it. You just, as soon as it doesn't hurt you like crazy, as soon as the pain is tolerable, you just go back into physical activity, right? So I'd be like, okay, it's not excruciating anymore. Like it just hurts a tiny bit. I can go full speed, play volleyball again. No surprise, 3 months later, it seems like a gust of wind rips my foot off my body, right? It was the same thing in jiu-jitsu. And I had to ask that question of like, why am I really doing jiu-jitsu? Is it for my health? If it was for my health, like I wouldn't be doing it with an ankle that is currently under rehabilitation. But it's not just for my health. It's for the other benefits, right? Being harder to kill, being able to bond with my brothers, being able to build my stress tolerance. So that's another example. Running, if you were to ask me, some people might have different opinions on this, but if you were to ask me, okay, and my lens I'm viewing this through is primarily like bone and joint health. That's a lot of where kind of my background comes from. Running is one of the least healthy things, in my opinion, that you can do for your joints, your bones, your tendons, your ligaments, right? Generally, the name of the game for ligament, tendon, joint injury is overuse. And running is literally just thousands of reps. That's what it is. And that's how people get hurt, right? We talk about like why old Granny Smith has, her hip out of place, even though she's never lifted weights ever. It's because she's been alive for 80 years. That's why. She's just taken so many steps that stuff stops working. There's mileage. And so like, if you're asking me on paper, running is just adding mileage. You're literally doing miles. You're doing Sunday miles, right? You only got a certain amount of miles on those knees. So if you're asking me on paper, it's not healthy. But why are we running? We're not running for healthy knees. We're not running to never experience pain. We're not running so that our hip flexors are never tight. True, right? We're not running so that we have the healthiest calves in the world. And like, no, that's not why we're running. We're running for the other benefits. We're running for the mental benefits. We're running to see how far we can push ourselves. We're running to be accountability partners to the other men that have these challenges. We're running to strengthen our minds, right? If it was purely just increase our cardio, we'd probably be biking a little bit more, right? Way less intense on the joints, or walking a little bit more. But yeah, so those are a few examples of like, should you only train for health? No, not only, in my opinion. Another example could be like, if you ever have the goal of lifting a massive weight, big deadlift goal, big squat goal, big bench press goal. Jacob, 600 pounds. How did that feel training for that? Any just perfect health? No bumps, no bruises, no injuries?
No, dude, lots of weeks where I had to back off, lots of failed attempts like leading up to that, just the training it was weird. Like, I feel like I hit my PRs in the days like I least expected, right? And that's just how things work out. But no, I love what you're saying, right? Like it's not always going to be we shouldn't train with the mindset or intent that like I'm going to be pain free, or like this is, like not everything has to be 100% conducive to our health, right? Like for like you said, BJJ, I love BJJ. Me and Gabe were talking about this before everyone got on the call. We freaking like jam our thumbs and fingers all the time, and like that can't be great for your health, right? That doesn't feel good, but that's okay. Like, I think I'm training to have like a fulfilling life. That's like kind of what I'm looking for, and that doesn't always like, health is a very broad term, and so that that it may not line up with that perfectly all the time, but that's okay.
That's true. Another really interesting example of this is with my dad. So a lot of you guys know my dad's story, right? Over this past year, a little bit more than this past year, he'd been undergoing cancer treatment, and he's cancer free now, thank God. But as he was undergoing cancer treatment, his body's obviously very weak. He's tired, right? Like he's deteriorating essentially. He's undergoing treatment that literally destroys your bodily cells. So my mom was really concerned about him, and like my dad's been retired for a few years. Again, part of the story, he had to retire from his corporate job. But since his retirement, he's been detailing cars, just simple work that he can do. It's not like they need the money, that he just likes doing it, and it gives him that sense of fulfillment, right? It's like, I'm working. All men just want to work, right? My mom started getting concerned. She was like, you shouldn't be detailing cars anymore. Like, you should be resting. You should be in bed. You do nothing. And my dad was like, no, like, you don't get it. Like, I don't detail cars because I like need to detail cars. I detail cars because it feels good to be able to do something. It feels good to be able to complete a task as a man, to get work done as a man. And my mom kind of looks at me, right, when we're discussing this, as she always does for any health discussions, like, well, what does Gabe think? And I'm like, Mom, he's right. Like, that might not be the healthiest thing for him to do. It's not what the doctors are recommending. It's not the easiest thing for him to recover from, but that fulfills him. That gives him a sense of purpose. That gives him a sense of drive. So let him do it, even if that takes a year off of his life. Even that takes a year off of his life. Would you rather have him living his last year feeling fulfilled, feeling purpose driven, feeling like he could accomplish something, or laying in bed wondering what he's good for?
You always hear those stories about, people retiring and then, just doing nothing within like 6 months. They just like deteriorate just because, you would think, the science would show that, hey, you're resting, you're relaxing, you should be, in better health. But once you take away that sense of purpose, it kind of, goes away and it messes with you.
Dang. Yeah, that's so true. It's another great like example of this, right? It's interesting. It's like, as human beings, both physically and emotionally, should our purpose be to avoid stress? Like, I don't think so necessarily. I think it's to be more capable of managing stress for the right reasons. Right. Yeah, it's crazy. It's very crazy. Like, I don't think, and Jordan Peterson talks about this a lot, like human beings are happier when they have responsibility, not when they lack responsibility. Right. And with responsibility comes stress, comes trial, comes lots of difficulty. But like, man, it does come with a lot of difficulty. Like Joey and I, the level of stress that we experience from things in the business to all the stuff that we're responsible for, it's massive. It's massive. And like any business owner can attest to it, right? And like we're like, end of the day, business owners, people, communicators, leaders, all the stuff, all the great stuff. Yes, amazing, awesome, cool, whatever. We're also 23-year-old dudes. That is true. We are also 23-year-old dudes. And a lot of times, like, we can look at other 23-year-old dudes, and like, especially if like we're going back home or something, or visiting like friends from high school or college, and we're like, so you really just wake up every day and just like clock in and like no concern about who you're impacting or like what you're building. You just clock out and just go like drink. And they're like, yeah, dude, like what stress, like what is that? Well, interesting. And that's not how we feel at all. We wake up and we're like, the world is resting on our shoulders type of thing. But I still feel immensely more fulfilled with more stress, because that stress has a why. Stress has a reason, right? So yeah, keep that in mind, guys. Like, this became kind of a broad iron sharpens iron discussion somewhat, but it does apply to your training too. There are going to be moments in your training where you have certain goals, and you reach physical limitations or physical challenges, whether it be, biking, or whether it be running or completed triathlon, or whether it be hitting a deadlift PR. There's gonna be a time where you tweak your back, right? You're like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Because objectively, stopping to reach this deadlift goal, my back wouldn't be tweaked if I just didn't deadlift. But staying like in this perfect little bubble for your health, for your body, never ever getting hurt. That's not the only reasons why we train. Right. Yeah. Also, this is a funny example. When we were in Croatia, Jeremy Newsom challenged all the guys to go on this. It was about a 10K run. One of the nights that like we had all kind of been out on the town drinking, and it was like 2 a.m., 2:30 a.m. when he invited everybody out. And so I'm going to bed at like 2:30, 2:40, and I have to wake up at like 5:30 to go on this long run. And if you're asking me, like, that's the worst possible thing you can do for your health, right? Like complete lack of sleep, totally undernourished, dehydrated, like terrible, all stuff. Oh my gosh, it was super unhealthy, but I'm super glad I went because there's other benefits other than just being healthy. Right. Yeah. Cool. I love it. Any like questions or situations that you guys have had where you're questioning, like, why am I really doing this? Or is this really healthy?
Yeah. I before I joined Default Kings, I was kind of two parts to this. Is I was I was doing a lot more like powerlifting stuff, and I had hit like deadlift PR, squat PR, and then I had this problem for a long time of having like a lot of acid reflux, and so I ended up going to a surgeon. I had everybody probably knows this or might know this. I had this hiatal hernia, which is like an upper GI hernia, and that was like literally like the week before I went to the surgeon. I hit my deadlift PR. I was super excited. I was like, I'm on my way to like 500 pounds deadlift. And it's the first time in my life I've done that. And he basically told me, you can't lift anymore. Right. And he asked me, like, is this your job? Like, are you like super competitive with it? I was like, no, I just do it in my basement gym. I'm excited about it. And it's something that really hurt for a long time. And I've had to weigh it. It's like, okay, so maybe I'm a way around this. Like, he kind of warned me off of lifting at all, but I did some research, stuck to higher rep ranges and try to keep breathing and things like that, to not re-damage it after the surgery, and took a lot of time off from lifting at all. And I don't know, it's just one of those things, like, I'm never not gonna deadlift. I'll probably never hit that 500 pounds I thought I was, but picking up 200 pounds occasionally is going to be all right for me, and it's going to feel good, right? So I've definitely had to weigh that. I think, am I doing the right thing? Because I'm probably not listening to everything he says, but I'm also feeling like this is what I'm supposed to do to like to feel myself. So I've definitely weighed those things. The other story is, like, my dad was a big bow hunter, and when he retired, I was like, oh, are you going to start doing a lot more archery, competitive or whatnot? He's like, nah, I don't shoot anymore. My shoulder hurts every time I do it. Like, he's never gone to like physical therapy. He's never tried to like exercise it. He just shoots his bow. And I was like, I can't believe that he would just give it up, right, to do that. And it's kind of the opposite of way I've tried to live my life. But anyway, two short stories there.
Yeah, dude, those are really great examples. And when you're telling me those stories, like, dude, that actually sounds a really, really challenging thing you have to confront, especially as you're progressing. Like, man, I might hit this 500-pound deadlift. That's a huge milestone, right? Like, that's like a whoa, okay, big boy weight. That's how we used to talk about it in the powerlifting gym I used to train. But that's big boy weight, 500. And then you get this hernia, and you're like, dang, doctors tell me not to lift at all. I'm here wondering, obviously feeling good, still progressing, and wondering like, maybe I'm not going to even hit that. But that's a great example. And my recommendation to you, Jeff, is to continue progressing and shoot for the biggest goal that you can. Because what I've found, and this is a little bit more tactical in terms of this idea of should you only train for health, is that there is a balance, right? Like at a certain point, if my elbow is ripped off my body, I probably shouldn't go to the jujitsu that day, right? But at the same time, if I still have this really huge goal of I want to compete and win a jujitsu competition, it's going to force me to learn how to rehab this elbow and keep it healthy. And that's what it's really done for me in my jujitsu example, because like I've had so many different injuries, so many different aches and pains and things, but I'm like, you know what? It's still worth it to me. I want to compete. I want to win. So I need to figure out what I need to do to make my body more capable. So even still setting that big goal is still useful, because I can't guarantee if you'll ever hit it or not. You know what I mean? Like, who knows? But it'll force you to prioritize, figure out, it'll force you to ask the right questions to your coach, say like, hey, like I'm doing this. Is it helping? Is it working? Like, what can we do to help work around this hernia? And it's just going to force you to be better overall. And you might hit a point where you're like, my body can't tolerate that. Okay, I have to lay off for a bit. But you might also just get stronger. You might also just become more physically capable. So that's the beauty of this, is like, I don't only train for health. I train to reach my goals, all the achievement, all the excitement that comes with that, prove to myself I'm capable. But health does become an obstacle at some point, right? You do have to ask that question of like, do I want to get out of bed tomorrow morning or do another rep at some point? But owning that line just forces you to get better. It forces you to get better. Because at the end of the day, you're gonna be like, I want both. I want to hit my goal and be healthy. And there is ways to do that, right? It forces you to get better. So I love that example. Also with your dad, how he, isn't doing more archery, because of his shoulder. I think that's a great example too of like why we really do also need to make sure we are training for health. Obviously, that's not the only reason, but we are still training for health, right? Because if you lack the health, you might be unable to do an activity that really brings you fulfillment, right?
Yeah.
A
It
great
was an
example
example of what you just said about jujitsu too. It's like, well, how can I still do this thing and be healthy or get better and maintain my passion, right? But know that I'm a little injured or something.
Yeah. I know jujitsu is one for you too. So maybe we can figure some more stuff out for that. Especially this coming weekend. But yeah, like it's really interesting. And this applies to stuff outside of just training too. I know something my dad used to struggle with was, my dad's a musician and he would play like on the church worship teams all the time, like since he was a kid. Right. And being in front of a speaker, like every single week, multiple times a week, just over time, overuse injury, like same thing as running super hard for super long, your hearing starts to go just from standing in front of speakers. Like it just does. And so there's a point where he had to like say, I have to start wearing earplugs to protect my hearing so I can keep doing the activity I want to do. Right. And so adding in a core or shoulder exercise to your normal routine, even when you may not like doing, might be your earplugs so that you can keep getting in front of the speakers. Right. There just might be things you need to start doing to manage those other goals. Right. Like I personally don't specifically enjoy like weird core training stuff, like the weird stuff Drew and Joey were doing on the boat. I don't enjoy that. I'm not like psyched to, let's go freaking do pound off press, baby, and get some bands out. Let's go. Like that's not me. I get excited by the deadlifts and stuff. But I am like, I need to do this so my body doesn't break in the thing I am excited for. Right. But yeah, really good stuff, guys. Really, really great stuff. Cool. Do you guys have any more like examples of this? I want to kind of stay on this subject because it's just applies so broadly. Jacob,
kind of recently I've been dealing. Oh, has been
go for it.
Yeah, kind of recently I've been dealing with like 2 weeks ago I had like a lower back thing going on, and then that kind of went away, and now this week I'm dealing with this like strain in my upper back. It's like permeating down my arm right now. And it's like just kind of week after week, and then like yesterday I was doing leg day and like had to this like little pull in my hamstring. It's like I'm like falling apart right now. So that's it's like very like I was just so pissed off in the gym yesterday by the end of it, because it's like every like Tuesday is when I kind of hurt my back doing like chin ups. I don't know how. And then all of a sudden yesterday, do something with my hamstring. It's like one thing after another, it just starts to get you know, demotivating for sure.
Frustrating. Yeah. I totally get that, man.
Yeah, frustrating.
Dude. Oh, bro, I totally get that. I totally get that, man. And that's the hard part with injuries is that yes, injuries, they're a physical ailment, but they're also extremely demotivating. It could be a mental ailment. That's why they're so crushing. Like you can get depressed if you get injured too hard. You like couldn't do like things, right? So yeah, bro, like I get that, dude. I kind of feel like my body's falling apart too right now. Like when you wake up and you're walking and you're like crack, creak, oof, ugh. Like let me be careful when I walk down the stairs. Yeah, you're pretty banged up. But what I'll challenge you to do, Drew, is in some of the physical activities that you're doing, it's okay to have periods of slightly lower intensity, periods of slightly lower intensity, because although for progression, muscle growth, adaptation, all the stuff, you need intensity, you need progression, you need execution, all that needs to be there. And we talk about training to failure, like, and also that's just our mindset as men, as default kings, is just like rah, all out, full intensity, like kill every single thing every single day. It is wise at times to not go 1,000,000%. It is wise at times to not go 1,000,000%. Like sometimes I go into jujitsu and I'm like, I'm killing everybody today. That's what I'm doing. That's my goal. I will sacrifice my body, my lungs. I will have a heart attack on these mats. I don't care. That's literally the mindset sometimes. And I do it because I can. But sometimes I'm like, I shouldn't die today. I think I'm just going to go in and try to get better and I'm going to push myself, but I'm not going to risk my life to do something. And it's the same thing in the gym sometimes too, right? Sometimes like, dude, max deadlift, you know what? Blast your music, have someone slap you on the back, freaking with some ammonia smelling salts if you want to, disregard everything, lift the weight at all costs. If I get injured after, who cares? Rah, hit the goal. Sometimes it's like, that last rep felt weird. Yes, I could be a pussy or whatever and skip this next rep, but I'm going to hold back so I can live another day. Right. So that's true too, is that it's okay to lower your intensity. It's okay to ask yourself, like, why am I going for this next rep? Why am I going for it? Right. It's okay to start managing that. The other thing too, Drew, is like, even though we tell you guys to train to failure on pretty much everything, technically you can still progress without training to complete all out, like gun to your head failure. You can. It's just most efficient to train to failure on pretty much everything because you just get more effective sets, reps per workout, right? You just literally get more. Why would you do 4 if you can do 5 in the same workout? So it's most time efficient to train to failure on pretty much everything. And it's true that if you don't train to failure on every single thing, you're probably missing out on a few effective reps. But again, this interference thing, maybe it's okay to miss out on 1 rep of some muscle growth so that your body doesn't break. Yeah. So definitely okay to find that balance, Drew, especially as you already have the consistency down, right? We don't usually talk about this with guys who don't have the consistency down yet because we want them to build a mindset, pushing yourself 100% every single time, always. They also generally don't have the mileage on their bodies for that to be a concern. In the beginning, you're literally not strong enough to probably injure yourself unless you do something really crazy. Like your body it can tolerate whatever your mind is going to push it to, promise. But at a certain point, your mind gets so strong that like we can all here probably, if we had to, actually kill ourselves in the gym. We all probably could do that. We could all probably train till we passed out. We probably could. Like, have any of you guys ever trained till you passed out? Anyone?
Growing up, never passed out.
I've never passed out, but like when I was wrestling in college and I had some of those weight cuts, I wanted to die. Like just laying on my floor on my carpet. Like there's one night I was like cutting. I like went to wrestling practice, then went to the gym for an hour and just did cardio like on the elliptical because I was trying to lose weight. And when I got home, I just showered and I fell asleep on my carpet floor. Like I was so tired. It was nuts. I guess I kind of passed out. But...
Yeah, 100%. but like, pass out or not, like push yourself to the limit, right? Like not I'm pushing myself to failure, like my body failed. My body actually failed. It stopped working. Right. There's this funny, like, oh my gosh, I love this. One of the mentors I used to learn from, he used to talk about like no one really trains to failure. Failure is death. And no one's trained till they die. So I was like, oh yeah, I guess failure is dying. But train till you throw up, right? Training till your legs give out. Like if you've ever ran till your legs literally give out, that's a fun experience. I've done that a few times when I was much younger doing track and field, where you're literally running so hard that your legs just turn off, you fall on your face, and you scrape your face, you scrape your hands. You're like, your legs stopped working. Like zero more muscular endurance there. You have to get picked up. It's crazy. Very crazy. Right. My cat trying to get in. Yeah, the point is here, like, because your mind gets to a certain point where it's physically capable of like pushing your body literally till it can't, or till it will break. There are times where you have to like logically gauge, like, okay, I shouldn't go into peak psycho mode because I will break myself. So let me pull back a little bit. Let me pull back a little bit. That's okay. It's wise at times. Yeah. Strong people problems for sure. Strong people problems. Carlos, I want to talk about your question, man, in here, or just the situation you're dealing with. Carlos says, I've been dealing with left shoulder pain for the past 4 months, really painful right bicep tendonitis for about 3 weeks. Literally can only do curls with 25 pounds in my right hand. My wife keeps insisting I see an orthopedic. I refuse. Man, Carlos, this is a frustrating one. Carlos, with something like this, without like doing a full physical therapy analysis via Zoom chat here, generally bicep tendonitis is going to come from some type of overuse, with your shoulder usually being in excessive internal rotation during some exercises. Okay, general language, but this will help. So internal rotation, Carlos, is this: shoulder neutral here, rolled forward. This is internal rotation. External rotation is when your shoulders are rolled backwards. Okay, internal rotation is here. Generally, bicep tendonitis comes from excessive internal rotation. Okay, excessive internal rotation, which means that I'm willing to bet, without seeing a video of every single rep that you do every single day and every single one of your workouts, that there's probably a little bit too much of this going on at some point during your training. Okay. Again, I'm not in the gym with you right now. You don't send me a video of every single rep of every single workout that you ever do. But what I would make sure we're doing, Carlos, is being intentional about avoiding excessive internal rotation. So like, even when you're doing something like a row, maybe don't let that row yank you all the way forward for the time being. Maybe keep that chest in front and just stay externally rotated for the row. Definitely. This actually comes most often, what I've seen, from pressing movements. So bench pressing, shoulder pressing, machine bench pressing, dumbbell bench pressing. Definitely during your bench press, Carlos, be hyper strict about keeping your shoulders behind your sternum during the entire press. A lot of guys will have that at the bottom, through the mid range of motion. Then when they get to the bottom, they cave in and they kind of extend out. And when they get to the top, they cave in too. So they finish the bench press like this. You're just trying to get the bar as high as possible. But the goal isn't to get the bar as high as possible. The goal is to move this bone as close as possible to this without it coming in front. So during all of your pressing, be super intentional about keeping your sternum in front of your shoulder. Like, I finish my presses and I'm like, it's like almost hard to fully stretch out your arm because you want your chest in front of your shoulder. It's like, because you can easily round forward. So be super intentional, Carlos, about not internally rotating during a lot of your exercises. This also comes up in arm exercises too, a lot, because we don't think that we're working our shoulder. But if you're doing bicep curls and you're like this, you're in internal rotation. If you're doing tricep press downs and you're like this, you're in internal rotation. Okay. You're staying in that position. You're overusing that position. So even in my bicep curls, I will stand there with the cable and I'll go like this. I'll drop my shoulders back, then do the bicep curl. Even with my tricep pushdowns, I'm not like over the rope like this. I'm straight with my shoulders back. I'm doing the tricep pushdowns from here. Okay. So, Carlos, in general, with this bicep tendonitis, look out for that internal rotation. A lot of it happens during pressing, but it happens during bicep curls, tricep pushdowns, other exercises too, and try to stay externally rotated. Yeah, form videos are going to be huge for you, man. Almost, I would say required if you really want to deal with this, is get some form videos sent over. So we can really, really look at what your form looks like, because it could be something obvious that we're just not seeing right now. Hopefully that's helpful. Sweet. Got into a little training tactics there, but good stuff. Good stuff. Do you guys have any other questions that have to do with the industry, myths, nutrition, training, mindset, anything they'd like to discuss today? Awesome. Fantastic. All right, team. That's all I have for you. For those of you who I was seeing in Orlando, I'm so excited. I am so excited. My mind has been preparing for this. My intentions have been preparing for this massively. And I'm just so excited for next week, because the entire focus is just going to be delivering for you guys massively, and just creating an environment where we're all going to uncover sides of ourselves that we've never seen before. Great stuff, Carlos. I'm glad that was helpful. And so this week for you guys coming to the retreat, I definitely want to just, again, set the tone of hyper intentionality with your thoughts. Do your prayer, do your deep work, do your journaling, and get clear on why do you feel like, or what do you feel like the intention is for you in this weekend. Of course, we're going to be setting the tones, we're going to be teaching lessons, but for you specifically, like selfishly, what do you want to get out of this weekend? What's the selfish reason for you coming down? Because that's gonna reveal a lot. It's gonna allow you to latch on to certain experiences and certain lessons and get the most value out of it. If you ask yourself, like, why selfishly do I want to be here? So does that make sense, guys? Heck yeah. Freaking go. All right, team. You guys have a blessed rest of your Friday and a great weekend. Talk soon.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.